Good evening. Hello. Well, I'm happy and excited and proud to be here today, and so proud that this event is actually taking place. I still can't quite believe it. I'll try to get over it and speak about geteilte Geschichte. Now, I'll show some pictures later, so let me clean up this thing here before we... Thank you. Thanks. The German word geteilt has different meanings, some of which are actually opposites. Geteilt means shared, and at the same time it also means divided, separated. The word Geschichte is history. Geteilte Geschichte. There couldn't be a better term to sum up how and why we all wound up here together, why this is taking place, and why I love the German language. It is our geteilte Geschichte. It is our shared history, which also divided us. Now, what exactly are things we share? This is not quite as easy to answer as it may seem at first glance. Yeah, we're all black and we're all German. You could say, yeah, well. But who is black and what is black? Man, this discussion is so old that I'll keep it real short. In my opinion, every person can call themselves whatever they like to call themselves. I can call myself Hildegard, Princess of Power. But this does not give me the experience of an actual princess, let alone of a princess of power. So it might not be about what I would like to be or what somebody thinks I am. The way I use the word black is as an experience. It is a global standpoint and a political term. All I have to know anyway is, am I black? And I think I know that. And the next question would be, what and who is German? That's even more complicated. Because you can be German without having any German experience. When you ask the German Constitution, it is only the passport that would make you German. When you ask the Germans who live in Germany, they will find what makes a person German is the passport and the language, and to be white. One of those not happening, you're not a real German. This belief prevails to the extent that some even have the opinion that there cannot be racism in Germany, as there are no black Germans existing. I too grew up with an interesting preconception. Of course, I knew that it is possible to be black and German at the same time. But the passport and the language thing, I had simply never thought about it myself. Then something really interesting happened. In 2004, when I lived in New York, I went to the Steuben parade. Does anybody know this? The parade, a march going on through Manhattan. The most German thing I've ever witnessed in my whole life, probably. Just figure out something entirely German, and there you have this parade through Manhattan. I went there for the first time. With me were friends, people of color, white people from Germany, from Europe, all over the place. And a young guy came up to us. He was really enthusiastic about being German. "You guys also German?" he asked us. I said, "Yeah, and you?" He said, "I'm so German." And I said, "Cool." Was geht denn ab, Mann? Was machst du denn hier? Studieren oder was? Oder Urlaub? Oder? He said, "Come again." I said, "You do speak German, right?" He said, "No, but I want to learn it." I said, "Wow, Were you adopted or something? What brought you here? I mean, where are your parents? And he said, nah, cool. My grandparents were German, so I'm German, and I'm proud of it. I started a group of young Germans meeting up in New Jersey. Why don't you come join us? I thought by myself, this guy might be a lot of things, but he's not German. At the same time, I was aware that this was the first time I had a white kid who was proud to be German. I'm sure most of you know the connotations of this phrase. Invite me to a meeting of young Germans instead of suggesting that I cannot be German. The German nationality rule goes, German is who has German blood. But this guy had interpreted this rule regardless of race. And I was thinking about him, you don't know the language, therefore you cannot be German. I wasn't thinking. But the most interesting reactions were those from people around us. Some people from Germany with me said, this guy's a loony and clearly not German. They had been brought up with the same preconceptions as I. Some other Germans from Europe that I did not know started laughing about me for my claiming to be German. And the Germans from the United States, from this parade, asked me all kinds of questions about Germany. How's it like? Are there forests? And so on. So, you ask me today, who's German? I'd say, you can tell from your personal history whether you're German. It can clearly belong to several places, several countries, several families at the same time. We all know that. And you can belong even against a nation's definition and understanding. To belong is a very private thing. I can live all my life in this country and belong to another country where my parents came from. Or I can live all my life in this country and not belong because I'm just not feeling it. Or I can move someplace and feel after a few years or instantly that now I belong here. What I'm trying to say is nobody gets to determine where you or I belong. You can be refused a passport, a nationality, a place to live, acknowledgement of your history, denied human rights, all of that. And we all personally experienced this, right? But you cannot be refused to belong. There's no certification for belonging. I could draw something and hand it out to you, no problem, but I am not the authority for where you're coming from or where you belong, and vice versa. And can nobody else determine where I belong? Those times are over. Let me tell you some things about Germany that you possibly haven't heard yet. It's so easy to learn the good things about Germany. Everybody will volunteer to tell you the positive stuff, the nice buildings, the high living standard for some people, and so on. There are many good things about Germany, but I'm not here to brag about. I'm here to put our experience into context. And the Black German experience goes, as you probably figure, beyond gingerbread houses, beer gardens, and hiking. Germany has a long history of conquering, being conquered, and as it is a country in the middle of Europe, with buoyant harbors and strong trading, it was never an isolated country. So of course there had always been extensive migration and cultural exchange from within and without Europe, in and with Germany. Besides, Germany is a federation of 16 states, roughly based on the biggest local tribes. These states are called Bundesländer, literally translated federal countries, so Germany is intrinsically multi-ethnic, and always was. Unfortunately, however, the majority likes to think until this day that Germany and the Germans are something homogeneous. Incidentally, wait, Germany likes to imagine itself as white. This fantasy overrules logic, law, history, and reality to this day. A conviction that is pretty common in Germany is as following: man, I don't know who we are. It's certainly not black. And in perpetuating this fantasy, this image, Germany is very successful. Most people in the world do not know that Germany is not, and never was, entirely white. Today, cautious estimates come to the conclusion that more than 1% of Germans are black. That's 1 million people, a lot of people. 20% of all Germans have direct ancestors from outside Germany. Germany has also a severe and hurtful colonial past, and issues to acknowledge this past or deal with its cause and effects. In the early colonial times, as well as during the Nationalsozialismus, black people were institutionally dehumanized and killed, put in Konzentrationslager, robbed their human rights. Germany still has a hard time tackling the underlying racism on which these ideologies could occur. The United Nations had to reprimand Germany for its insufficient engagement against racism and for insufficient acknowledgement that racism actually exists. Of that, the UN, the United Nations, had to reprimand Germany twice in the last 5 years. Colonial images and stereotypes remain intact, untackled. They continue to spread. To this day, we are exposed to Jim Crow-esque and other racist images and stereotypes in school books, in children's books, in nursery rhymes, in the media as a normal part of the German tradition. The core of structural racism is not being fought on an institutional level. People of color in Germany continue to be attacked and killed by racist mobs, and those crimes are not considered hate crimes. There are no-go areas for us in our own country. I would like to quote from a paper from the Alexander von Humboldt Foundation, Alexander von Humboldt Stiftung. The histories, culture, and political struggles of black foreign nationals in Germany today are tolerated by the liberal white German left. However, the recognition and acceptance of an afro-German legacy among the German folk is a much harder task for white Germans. Blacks are still perceived as interesting guests at best, but increasingly they, like other perceived foreigners, are seen as guests who have worn out their welcome. This is the backdrop against which Afro-Germans announce their identity and assert their history. This is a reflection by a group of Bundeskanzler scholars in the year 1998. There are certain spaces that are assigned to me based upon goodwill. The rooms in which I am welcome in Germany are generally remote from intellect, any kind of control, power, or self-determination. If I want any of that, I'll have to fight hard for it, and might or might not succeed. To this day, black people in Germany are being conspicuously encouraged to pursue a career in show business or a service and catering industry, kept from the academical path if possible. I was strongly advised to become a seamstress when I was in high school. Now, nothing wrong at all with becoming a seamstress, but believe me, this is not where my talents lie. I would make a terrible seamstress. There's no institutional support, institutional empowerment network for us in Germany. No university program, no scholarship to try soothe, try counteract a history of oppression. Many Afro-Deutsche in my generation grew up with a single white parent, mostly the mother, and many with hardly any other black person around or even in sight. Not in the family, not in their school, not in their town. Of course, this must influence a child's focus, self-perception, and identification. Thousands of black kids in Germany had, and many still have to, find out for themselves where they belong, how they can define themselves, if they have to define themselves in any way, but they rather not define themselves at all, or maybe only as, this is me, and not as an imposed exotic or an allegiance to a nationality that forms a paradox with their appearance, and an excluding conception of who can actually belong at all. And how can they stop constantly being defined wrong, other, inferior? Thandie Newton recently said in a speech, "I was other before being anything else, even before being a girl." And I'm afraid this sentence rang a bell in some of us. I am constantly being told what I am and what I am not. Therefore, it is indispensable, it's crucial that I correct all these external attempts at defining me. I say what and who I am. And for one, I am a black German woman. So much about Germany and about me. Now, I cannot tell you what it's like to grow up in the United States, because I did not grow up in the United States. I cannot describe your history, your experience, your present. If I want to find more about you, and I do, then I can only read up on your stories or maybe ask, would you share your thoughts, your knowledge? I can listen and learn. I have no idea, for example, what it's like having been physically displaced from your own country, your own family of birth. I owe to my dear friend Rosemarie Peña and the openness with which she shares her life story that I was able to get a first glimpse into one of the biographies of the black Germans who grew up outside Germany in these circumstances. You black Germans outside Germany have distinct biographies, but you also have something in common in your personal history. You went away. Some were lucky enough to leave the country upon their own decision. Some of you were displaced, taken against your will, when you were little children. Germany decided after World War II, in agreement of the right and left-wing political parties, that it did not want black children in its new model democracy. You were expelled from your own country because Germans cannot be black, and you just happened to be black Germans. Had you been tourists, you could have stayed. Had you been white, you could have stayed. But your flaw was that you did belong. Germany would not tolerate this, still has a hard time tolerating it today. Is this the wrath? Just ignore that. So yeah, I still have to fight about constitutional rights, like getting your own nationality back, or at all. Some of you, the black German children in the 1950s and 60s, were given away for adoption to Scandinavia. Some were brought to the United States of America, depending, among other things, on how dark or light your skin was. The United States' reaction to the German wish to get rid of the black German children was not a unanimous one. There were different opinions in the United States. One was, no way, It is cruel and racist to take black children away from their mothers and give them up for adoption to a faraway land. We should not play a part in this arrangement. Another reaction was, this country, Germany, is so obviously racist that no black child can safely grow up there. You send us those kids all right, and we'll take good care of them. And today, a couple of years later, I'm thinking, maybe they both were right. This is the history we share. I will not try to compare pain. Even though we have different experiences, we now know that they are closely connected. We have all been displaced. Some of us have been physically abducted from their own country. Some of us have been expelled from the country internally. We have been divided so forcefully that even most of us, of ourselves, the black Germans, are not aware or just now beginning to realize that our whole history, including our own personal history, has been obscured. But what lies underneath will not go away by not looking. It will stay underneath. And we are well aware that it is there. Some of us, in fact, more and more people are taking the courage to carefully take a look. One piece of the puzzle at a time. This is the work you are doing right now, right here. It is actually a very personal and intimate work. And the work we black Germans in Germany do is another piece of this puzzle. Step by step, we come to understand that there is a reason, a link to why our older generations in Germany grew up isolated or alienated from other black people with the same pain. And the key question that could not and cannot be safely enunciated, y'all do not identify with me. Where can I find somebody who does and whom I can identify with? We come to understand why this has been so, why most of the black German kids in the 1970s and 1980s didn't have anybody to turn to. Because they had taken you away. You would have been our sisters, our mothers, our aunts, our teachers, our deans, our doctors, librarians, social workers, judges, pilots, our neighbors. We've been missing you a big deal. There are younger black generations in Germany who are growing up now with black parents, black relatives, black role models, teachers, thank God. But you know what? That doesn't change the fact that you're missing and that we miss you. Now, all of this we did not learn in school, right? There's this universal knowledge gap going on. And some of us are fighting hard to change that. But all of this is only a part of our history. I read something very smart and relevant in the blog of a black German teacher named Patrick. He writes, black history cannot always be about the victimization of black people throughout history. He's so right. Of course, the black German experience is not solely a painful one. There's something else we do not learn at school. And it's not something sad and depressing, but something exciting and uplifting. It is the fact that, I hope you're sitting firmly in your seats. You're all sitting? Okay. It is the fact that black people in Germany go way back. Way longer than the arrival of American armed forces in World War II or French armed forces in World War I. So many people think and like to think that the black European presence is something relatively new, owing to aviation, American GIs, and all this modern time stuff. And it's so wrong because we go way back. Let me give you a handful of examples. I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. Here's a little gallery of black Europeans going way back. this brother here. In the military of the Roman Empire, black soldiers were in considerable number. Legions from as early as the year 36 before Christ were comprised of African soldiers. The Roman Emperor Septimius Severus, his brother here, was a black man. He was born in 146 in the city of Leptis Magna in the Roman province Africa, today Libya. He became head of a family dynasty that led to more emperors among his descendants, for example, Emperor Caracalla, governing Europe and far beyond. Another brother, Alessandro de' Medici, Count of Florence, Italy. In the early 16th century, he was one of the first black heads of a European state, if you don't count the 3 African popes before him, that lived before him. He wasn't a pope, he was just head without being pope. Another important man from Germany is the black lawyer and philosopher Anton Wilhelm Amo from the University of Halle. He wrote a scientific paper about the legal status of black Europeans in the year 1729. He clearly was not the first one, because there was no first one. We have always been there. Meet Sister Queen Charlotte Sophia, born the Princess of Mecklenburg-Strelitz, a German woman in the 18th century. She's related to a black family of the Portuguese royal house, one of her ancestors being Margarita de Castro y Sousa. This Charlotte Sophia became the Queen of England. She was an amateur botanist and introduced the Christmas tree to England, talking about black contributions. She's the great-great-great-grandmother of the Queen Elizabeth II of England. You can even tell a resemblance from some portraits. The city of Charlotte in North Carolina was named after her honor. Right now, this summer actually, is the 250th anniversary of Charlotte Sophia's coronation. The German Bundesland of Mecklenburg is celebrating and proud of her heritage, the German heritage, that is, because they don't mention her African or black ancestry. And I think this is really sad, because it would mean so much to so many black German children today. I would say 99% of all people don't know about this black royal ancestry in Germany. Yeah, we go way back. All the examples are just examples. They were black Europeans or Germans even before Germany was called Germany. So how can one think our nation or nationality is purely white? One of the publications of the German Historical Institute is a book called Germany and the Black Diaspora from 1250 until 1914. I would say I can see a correlation that this publication has first been issued by University Press in Cambridge and not in Berlin, Munich, or Frankfurt, Germany. There's work to do. We are uncovering our own history slowly, each generation anew, it seems. Black European historians and scientists have been doing this work over and over again for centuries. And to compensate for all the covered up, the hidden knowledge, for everything we did not learn at school, all the stuff that has been effaced from our history books concerning our history, I strongly suggest you visit the exhibition Home Story Deutschland, if you get any chance to do so in any country. I've seen it in Senegal, in Germany, like it's touring around the world. Please do attend this exhibition. They have also a great catalog. I think you can order it online. It's the first exhibition that puts into context black German biographies from multiple centuries, along with a historical timeline of black presence in Germany. I learned so much from this exhibition and from the historical timeline. I've seen it several times, and reactions from people that saw it for the first time were always the same. was always, can you believe this? We go way back. Yeah, and that's true. We are no incidents or coincidences. We have roots there. We have folks there. We belong, and we always have. And as we sit here today, we're living proof. So no matter where we've been taken or where we choose to live, we do belong. Of course, there's also much about the Black Northern American history that we're not being taught in school. For example, that the Black Northern American experience is not a homogeneous one either. I did not know this before I went to New York for some time. There I learned that I have an aunt from Mali who opened up an Afro shop in Brooklyn and is American. Her experience is different from Puff Daddy's experience. Barack Obama's experience, coming from a multicultural family with a Kenyan father, is a different experience than that of my friend Thuli, who has not stepped out of Queens in 20 years. Or my friend Sabine's experience, who is Moroccan and Swedish and from Los Angeles. Or you, the Black Germans, who were brought to the United States as children. There is no universal Black experience in the US either. But there are also communities. There is a present that we all share. And let's just admit and embrace the abundance of our histories. The Black German heritage and experience has always been so diverse. And I know something else we can be proud of. The Black Germans in Germany. Since the 1980s, Afro-Germans started meeting up with an agenda in Germany. They exchanged experiences, formed a community, teamed up for mutual movement. This was mostly upon the initiative and under the guidance of Afro-German women. There has also been some exchange and contact with sisters from the United States. And we in Germany owe the Black civil rights movement in Germany after World War II predominantly to strong women. You have no idea, oh, you probably do, how many issues of domination and oppression this has spared us. We did not even begin a struggle for the heterosexual man's rights. We fought for every Black person's rights. This turned out a big advantage. We still cash in on the multiple benefits from the fact that it was a group of empowered and empowering, emancipated women, leaders in the German Black rights movement. We profit from this fact on an academic level, in our community and in our families. It makes such a difference. So thank you, ladies, many of whom later organized in the organization ADEFRA. And more good stuff. We keep, yeah, for ADEFRA. Yeah. We keep creating safe places and more of them. There is a Black community weekend retreat in Germany every year called Bundestreffen. Sure you've heard about it. Who has heard about the Bundestreffen? Legendary. Oh, not so many. So I need to show the video clip, what it's like. It's been going on for over 25 years now, and it's spectacular for us. Let me show you this short clip so you can get an idea what's going on at the Bundestreffen and why we think it is so important. So yeah, if you haven't been to Germany yet, but if you'd like to visit, then the Bundestreffen might be a good place to start. That's what Grace Armstrong did. She visited in 2008 for the first time together with Rosemarie Peña, and she'll tell you really shortly in her own words what it was like for her to come to the German Bundestreffen.
My name is Grace. I am here because fellowshipping with other Black individuals with some type of Black descent, African descent, and it's very enriching. It's very empowering. Now I want to learn Deutsch so that I can speak with the other half of myself, so to speak, and It's very difficult because I don't understand what everyone is saying, but I just feel the energy, and it's very good. I feel the different spirits that are here, and I'm blessed. I'm happy to be here.
How will it change your life when you go back?
It would change my life dramatically because now I don't just see, I've never thought that I would stay in the States at all because that's just not what's in me. But now I see the whole world instead of just the United States, you know what I mean? So when we first arrived, it wasn't a big deal. But now that I've come here and see your pain and see everyone else's pain and how the diaspora has not just affected the Caribbeans and, you know, it's affected like everyone. Like now I know that there's really like, excuse the ignorance, but black people everywhere is fighting against the same racism, the same sexism, the same ageism, like everything, you know. So I think that we all have to understand one another in order to ball up a big fist to fight the fight. You understand?
Fight the fight, you understand? And I know grown-up people whose parents got to know each other at a Bundestreffen more than 20 years ago. So that makes for a whole generation with a whole new outlook. And somebody said that better than me in his own words, and that's yeah, I also think that's an achievement. This last sweet statement was from the trailer of the new documentary called My Quarter Century, Mein Viertelhundert, by Julie Rivera. The premiere was just last Monday, and I'm sure we'll see the film next year. And I think Sebastian, the man from this video clip, is so right, because today I do not need an external reference anymore to understand who I am and what is my history, what is my heritage, where do I belong. I am not a child anymore. I choose my environment, and because of those groups, I can. And I do not need to wait outside the house of an oppressor and ask, please, why do you not accept me as equal? Why do you discriminate against me? Because I do not need the acceptance of these people. I could not care less about why they don't like me or what they think of me at all, as long as I have my own frame of reference, which these fine people provide. I have a whole group of people that matter so much to me, and that's the achievement. So, yeah, I have a new definition for displaced. It's a positive definition. It goes, I am no longer dependent on a place because I take my space with me. My place is potentially everywhere. Can be in this house tonight, can be in a chat room, at a convention tomorrow, can be at Roscoe's, can be at the Bundestreffen, at certain universities, in some galleries, at many concerts. And isn't that a typical German strategy? Typical black German strategy, I want to say. Because we are so diverse, we have direct access to multiple perspectives, so many places. The tools we use for empowerment, for expressing ourselves, come from all over the world. And these tools we learned firsthand. Spoken word traditions from Bavaria, poetry in West African matrix, science and research from Timbuktu, Addis Ababa, Accra, and London, hip-hop from the United States, creative writing from Algeria and Sudan, children's games from Cameroon and Nigeria, strategies of resistance from Togo and South Africa. We learned so much from our grandparents or uncles or cousins or now best friends. Of course, being black is not just about adversity. It is also about diversity, history, and an incredible richness of cultures and perspectives. So, what should we do with each other now? Well, I think we already began. We're talking and listening and learning from each other. And we want to educate others about our history. So first we educate ourselves. This is what we're doing at this convention and hopefully thereafter. And I am excited because there is so much to learn about civil rights in the United States and your biographies, and we all should read bell hooks. And there's also so much to learn about the Afro-Deutsche civil rights movement and Mai Ayim's books and Adefra and ISD. So these works are so important that I cannot wait to be there tomorrow when we all share it, and next year and the year after and until, forever. Because our stories are being told and written by all kinds of people, and nowadays you can get a fancy degree if you try to tell my story. So, and that's why I'm glad that we're, educating each other now. There is a lecture that I frequently hold in Germany. It is called 7 Indications of Suppressive Discourse. And these indications apply everywhere, also here, because it's a part of everywhere. Among our 2 countries, the United States is the dominant one. Over and compared to Germany. The US has prevalence, more worldwide attention, where you get attention, more power. And with this comes a side effect that is often ignored, and I want to talk about it openly because it is so important to me that we do not make this mistake. We can incidentally create suppressive systems for each other out of our own pain, out of our own want. We are capable of running over the pain and the want of the next person. And I just so wish we would never do that and exoticize each other or think we are each other's informants or something like that. We can all share our own experience and interpret it ourselves. And experience is not negotiable. So I have a suggestion how we could prevent us from getting into this situation, hurting each other one day. You all know the saying, nothing about us without us is for us, right? So this is exactly what I would like to suggest. Let's listen and learn and testify and respect each other. And you cannot explain me. And I will not explain you. It's still as crucial as it always was that we tell our own stories. And this is what we came here for, after all. So now, in order to make the geteilte Geschichte a shared history for the future, I think right now we are at this point where we've been meeting a long-lost sister for the first time in so many years, and now we'll have to decide how and where the relationship shall go. And of course, I have an idea about how I want it to go, and hopes and dreams about us in the future. Still, there's the ubiquitous black question, through whose eyes do we see ourselves? Or more accurate for our situation, through what kind of eyes do we see each other? While we hope for appreciation and understanding from our countries, our communities, and our families, we will first accept ourselves and learn to understand each other, which is actually the same thing. When I was a little girl, I would not have dreamed that I would have a transatlantic connection one day. And now we're here and strengthening transatlantic connections. And this means so much to me. And I just want to thank you so much for being a part of it. Merci.